On paper, South Korea is doing better than ever, but under the surface there are growing problems that could lead to Korea losing what they worked so hard for. Most of these problems will be faced by many other countries soon, so world leaders are watching to see what happens next. Today we're going to tunnel vision on Korea to see the 4 deadly challenges they're facing and what caused them. First, let me ask you a question. Can a country truly be a democracy if a few powerful businesses break the law with little to no consequences? You might think this describes America, but it's not even comparable to South Korea. Korean has a word for the type of massive family-owned business that dominates the country: Chaebols. The 4 biggest Chaebols accounted for 40% of GDP in 2023. Old economic policies prioritized Chaebols to boost growth. And to be fair, this did work, but now these families can corrupt the government. They keep having scandals and they keep getting pardoned. Chaebol domination also contributes to the country's toxic workplace culture. Korea is one of the most overworked high-income countries in the world. Koreans work more than the famously work-obsessed Americans. Chaebol family members sometimes physically abuse the service workers around them. Korea is always trying to reduce corruption, but fixing the system is hard because it's the system that made Korea rich in the first place. The same can be said about Korea's next problem: debt. Not government debt, although that isn't the best either, but household debt. The average Korean is in debt worth over twice their annual income. And that's just the legal debt. Korea has a thriving illegal loan shark industry. Housing in Korea, and especially in the cities, is getting really expensive. But there isn't another option, so people have no choice but to go into debt to survive. The traditional rental system in Korea requires renters to pay most of their house's value as a deposit, which they will get back at the end of their stay. The landlord gets to use the deposit as an interest-free loan in the meantime. This unique system, called jeonse, lets renters avoid having to pay monthly, but the larger upfront cost forces many to resort to taking out loans. Like many Asian countries, there's a strong pressure to have your kids perform well academically. People are then driven into debt to get more and better education for their kids. The good news is some of the other common sources of debt are avoidable, like getting plastic surgery. In South Korea, almost 25% of young women have gotten at least one procedure. And it also isn't as uncommon for men to get plastic surgery as it is in other countries. Cosmetic surgery can be justified as an investment in your career, and thus something it's worth taking out debt to get. Korea's culture has been great for the tourism industry, but it also leads to Koreans spending the most per capita on luxury goods. It's a need to keep up appearances that's behind much of the spending on pointless stuff. High household debt levels cripple growth potential and make a country more fragile. And fragile is the last thing you want your country to be when it's starting to lose the most fundamental building block of a nation. Korea's on the path to running out of people. The fertility rate is the number of births per woman, and Korea's hovers around 0.75. With some exceptions, like Vatican City, this is the world's lowest fertility rate. To maintain a stable population, you need a fertility rate of 2.1. Korea's current population is 52 million, but it could be somewhere around 23 million by 2100. You might think planning for something so far away in the future is crazy, but on the scale of a country, it's necessary. Trends like these need to be turned around before they start actually hurting the country, because by the time you can feel it, it's too late. This is a change so big it will be felt in every part of society. Fewer births would significantly increase the average age. Fewer young people to support the old would eventually damage the retirement system. There's already an alarming number of old people unable to retire, and this would make that much worse. Industries that depend on younger workers will move out of the country. The military that needs to protect South Korea from North Korea will struggle to fill necessary positions and guard the border. Eventually, the thriving culture, which attracts so many tourists, will start to stagnate. So why is the fertility rate so low? Here are some of the most probable causes, but we don't know for sure because this has never happened before. It doesn't seem like people don't want to have kids, it's just that having kids is too expensive nowadays. As I already said, extremely high housing and education costs are main factors in the debt crisis. These problems only grow with the number of kids you have. Back in the day, most people were farmers, and so kids were valuable child laborers instead of liabilities. Maybe having kids might pay off in the really long term, but when you're in debt, you can't wait that long. Another thing I mentioned before is that Korea has relatively intense working hours. Raising kids, or at least raising them well, takes time. So Koreans say they work too much to raise kids. This might sound like it can't be true because many people in poor countries have even longer hours and can still have kids. But this is because Koreans have lost the ability to raise kids the traditional way. In a village, everyone takes care of all the kids. The same almost never happens in a city. And the young people who would be having kids generally live in cities now. The Korean government's primary plan, and the plan of most governments trying to fix their fertility rate, is handouts. These can take the form of straight cash or lower taxes. In theory, this could work, but the results of everyone who's tested this have been poor. It is far too costly to make a meaningful impact on how expensive it is to have kids by directly handing out money. Larger changes in policy are required. The fourth and final problem is the most revealing. South Korea has the highest suicide rate in the world, according to the OECD. Certainly, part of the reason why is cultural. Placing an undue emphasis on looks can lead to depression. However, most of the main suspects are related to economics, like the overwhelming pressure on children to be academically successful, chronic overworking, and being in debt. You can argue that these things helped Korea grow, but the one and only goal of economics is to make people's lives as good as possible. The suicide rate is a warning that something needs to change. Sorry for my pronunciation, by the way. Don't get too mad at me.